Police made more than 90 arrests today as they tried to contain disorder on the streets of central London in the hours before a demonstration involving hundreds of thousands of people calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Police officers say they had bottles and other missiles thrown at them by a group of counter-protesters. Scuffles broke out as police attempted to stop a crowd of people carrying St George's flags marching towards the Cenotaph, where the annual Armistice Day service was taking place. Harry Horton has the latest.
This Armistice Day, hundreds came to the Cenotaph not to pay their respects, but to stage a protest. "You let your country down," some chanted. This counter-protest was organised in response to a pro-Palestinian march taking place elsewhere in London. Police tried to hold the crowds back from Whitehall, but they failed. Many of these protesters have links to far-right groups. Tommy Robinson, the former leader of the English Defence League, was in the area. There were minor scuffles as they spread out across London, and police tried to stop them reaching the pro-Palestine demonstration. Dozens of arrests were made. While the 2-minute silence was marked respectfully and without incident on Whitehall, officers have faced aggression from counter-protesters who are in the area in significant numbers, said the Met Police in a statement this afternoon. The Home Secretary has labelled pro-Palestinian marches hate marches and accused police of playing favourites with different groups. She made no comment today. Away from the Cenotaph, around 500,000 people were expected at a march calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Police say they are looking into numerous reports of anti-Semitic signs and chants, but many of those in attendance insist their protest is peaceful.
We don't appreciate these marches being called hate marches because all we want is peace. We don't want deaths on either side.
I felt I needed to come here and show my support, especially when it was called a hate demonstration. That was the last straw, because this is to do with peace.
It's disgraceful that both our main political parties won't call for a full and proper ceasefire.
Well, this pro-Palestine march has just started. It is loud, it is noisy, but so far no sign of any trouble. The fear police have is about what happens if far-right counter-protesters in other parts of London come into contact with this demonstration. So far, that hasn't happened, but the political ramifications of today's two protests may be felt later this week. Harry Horton, ITV News.
Well, that pro-Palestinian demonstration is nearing its end now, and we'll hear from Sarah McKinley, who's there in a moment. But first to Charlotte Cross, who is near the Cenotaph on Whitehall. Charlotte, have things calmed down there now?
For the most part, yes. Now, you can see there is still a heavy police presence around the Cenotaph, and in the last half an hour it has become clear why they are still needed. As another remembrance event took place, more wreaths were being laid. We heard a loud disturbance from the end of Whitehall, and officers ran down the street to meet them. It appears a group of counter-protesters were trying to push past officers, and the Metropolitan Police said officers were faced with unacceptable violence, including people throwing missiles and a metal barrier. However, it was short-lived. The remembrance event was able to take place as planned, and calm has now returned.
OK, thank you, Charlotte. Sarah McKinley is in South London, where the pro-Palestinian march ended this afternoon. Sarah, what's happening where you are?
Yes, well, speeches are still ongoing behind me, but a number of people are starting to leave what organisers called the march that nobody wanted to happen. Between the chants today of Free Palestine and ceasefire now, the second 2-minute silence of the day was held, this one for the victims of this conflict so far, but also for the innocent victims of all conflicts throughout history. OK, Sarah, thank you very much. Well, Harry is with me here in the studio now. Harry, the Home Secretary was criticised for her comments ahead of this march, wasn't she? What's been the political reaction to what's happened so far today?
Well, the political reaction all surrounds those comments made by the Home Secretary earlier this week, where she accused the police of bias after the Metropolitan Police rejected her calls to have this pro-Palestine march banned. Today, the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, London Labour Mayor, has said that the violence we've seen today is as a direct result of the Home Secretary's comments. He said in the statement, the scenes of disorder we witnessed are a direct result of the Home Secretary's words. The police job has been made much harder. The Scottish First Minister, Humza Yousaf, he said the far right has been emboldened by the Home Secretary and accused her of fanning the flames of division and said that she must resign. Now, her position was under serious pressure before these two demonstrations today. I suspect as we head into next week, there will be much more scrutiny about whether she can survive as Home Secretary going forward.
But as we've been hearing, a 2-minute silence was held across the UK today to mark Armistice Day, including at the Cenotaph in London. Here's our correspondent Helena Wilkinson on this morning's ceremony.
At the Cenotaph in London, the focus of the nation's remembrance, they gathered to remember those who've served and sacrificed, marking the end of the First World War on the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month. After the 2-minute silence, wreaths were carefully placed at the foot of the monument. Then the poem, perhaps by Vera Brittain, who was a nurse in the First World War, was read.
Perhaps someday the sun will shine again, and I shall see that still the skies are blue, and feel once more I do not live in vain, although I feel bereft of you.
This evening, the King and Queen will attend the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall, ahead of tomorrow's Remembrance Sunday service. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News.